Well, good morning, Valley View. We normally work through a book of the Bible at a time. We've been working through the book of Proverbs. We've taken a break from that for the summer for a couple of weeks to hear from a few folks. And we're going to continue in that theme. We're going to start back to the book of Proverbs next week, but this week we're going to do something even a little different. A few months ago, our sojourners were meeting. They meet about once a month. They're our more experienced group at the church. They meet for fellowship, encouragement. Eddie Lee heads up that group. And that week in particular, so this was a couple months ago now, she had asked Isaac Sanchez to share his story, his background with the group, how God led him to the U.S., how they ended up at Valley View. And it was a really encouraging story. I was there for it, and I left there very moved, very stirred, very encouraged, and I think the whole church needs to hear his story. This was about the same time that we brought Isaac on as our worship pastor. You know, Isaac has been here on staff about 10 years now, I think, at this point. He's been around a lot longer than a lot of our staffs. Maybe not Eddie Lee yet. He hasn't reached that status. But he's been here a while, and I think a lot of people will be very encouraged to hear his story. So if you would, let's welcome up Isaac Sanchez. Isaac, would you come on up?
John, appreciate it. Appreciate, church, that introduction. Thank you, Pastor. Thank you, the elders, for giving me this opportunity to talk to you this morning. I usually come out here with a guitar in my arms, and that gives me a lot of security. So today I'm a little bit nervous. Even though I'm on stage every single week, I don't usually get to talk this much, and I don't want you guys to be here for 2 hours hearing my rambling, so I've really concised it into hopefully a coherent story of my life and my family's journey here. And I'm sorry to disappoint you, church, by not having the first person in 3 weeks with a little bit of hair in their head. All jokes aside, thank you, Troy, and thank you, Kobe, for bringing the word to us this past 2 weeks. We really appreciate hearing from God through all of you. But this morning, church, I want to share a little bit of my background, share a little bit of my family's history. And if you notice a little bit of my accent, I don't have the pleasure of having some of y'all's southern drawl or country accent. But that accent comes from Cuba. I was born in Havana, Cuba, in May 13, 1995, which was a long time ago, I now feel like. And I think we have some images on the screen that might pop up here in a second, showing me and my family as little kids, where you can see here on the side screens. That is me and my very young parents. They had me when they were about 21 years old, which is very old for Cuba, honestly. Usually it's much younger. Me and my family, and there's a couple more images here that'll come up. Me and my family lived there. I come from my dad's side, I come from a background, a pastoral background. My great-grandpa, he was one of the founders of the denomination that I was a part of in Cuba. And my grandpa followed suit, and he also became a pastor in that denomination. My dad, though, he wanted to be the black sheep of the family. He saw the struggles, and he saw the hardships that it comes from being in ministry, being on staff at a church, and he just wanted to be a musician. He wanted to just play the piano and lead worship. So that's where I get some of my family's background. That's actually our home in Cuba. That's our front porch. As you can see, it needs a little bit of paint. And that back there is my grandparents' house. We lived in a multicultural, multi-generational home where we lived with our grandparents as well. My dad, he taught himself how to play trumpet and piano, and But God knew that that wasn't all He wanted for him. So a couple years into me being a baby, he actually accepted the call to become a pastor as well. So from a very young age, I was blessed to grow in a Christian home. I was blessed to be at church all the time, go through all the motions that comes with that, from being in students to getting to middle school and elementary. And it was such a blessing. I'm telling you, if you are a teenager now, if you're a student, and you have the privilege to be here today and to go and to be raised in a home that loves the Lord and brings you to church, you have no idea what a privilege you have in our life. So really hold on to that as you grow. And for those of you that are parents that are raising kids in the church, I hope that you take some out of my story, out of the story of my family as we came to the States. But my dad ended up being a young pastor. He started to become like an interim pastor, I guess you would call it here, where he was sent to different churches to give vacation time to the pastors, time to be with their families. Maybe it was a transitional time in the church. They were looking for a new pastor. So we were sent all over the city of Havana. So from a very young age, I learned to have a lot of hats in every church that I went to. I was either playing the accordion, kind of. I was either having a tambourine in my hands or maracas or whatever it might be, or it might be just a chair that I found to have some sound to it. So from a very young age, I was just immersed in that life. Later on in life, my dad gets assigned to move to the countryside of Cuba. And the next photos coming up here show a little bit of that. So we went from being in the city, in a place with 4 walls and fans. We didn't have AC, but we had fans. This is Cuba. To sometimes being and doing church in a place like this. I'm the one that kind of has his hand up. And if you see, I'm playing the chair as a little drum. So from a young age, I was really interested in playing drums and music. On the right side corner, there's my mom and some of my grandparents there as well. And there's another picture there that shows what BVS looked like for me growing up. My mom is leading the kids, and on the corner, maybe with the pink dresses, you see 2 girls there. Those are my sisters. They're 2 years younger than me. You saw them in some of the pictures as well. But we went from city people to, when we walked in the first day, they handed my dad a horse. And they were like, "This is your horse now. You got to feed it, and you got to make sure it doesn't die." So we went from walking in paved streets to having to take care of a horse and learning how to farm. But in that time, God showed us so much of His provision for us. We did not know how to farm. We didn't know how to garden. And every single day, we never went without food or something to have for breakfast a day in our lives when we were there. Because whenever we didn't have it, God will wake someone up in the middle of the night and tell them that they needed to bring us food. And all of a sudden, some beans would show up in the front yard. Some eggs would show up in our backyard. And God provided for us in that time of need so much that we would have never experienced. But being in the countryside, there was no schools. We had no schools. There was basically just an elementary school. So we had to make the decision that I had to move back to the city in order to continue my education. So I was a little sad, but I was very excited. I was getting to move with my grandparents. And if you've ever stayed with your grandparents, you know that you can get away with a couple more things than you would with your parents. Even though I was missing my family tremendously, I was actually very excited to kind of be a little bit away from them. I was enjoying my independence, but at the same time, I found myself that I was kind of steering away from God, just because I didn't have that routine. I didn't have my parents there to make me go to church when I didn't want to. If I was sleepy enough, or if I played that I was a little bit sick, I could just stay home. In that time, even though I had great independence, I started to fall away back from God. I didn't have that routine that helped me focus. I didn't have that community that strived to raise me up whenever I was down. So I began to question my faith. I have been my whole life with my parents. They have guided me, my grandparents. I've always been at church. So this time being away, it really made me test my faith. I don't know if any of you can relate to that notion. Maybe you went to college and you had a tough time. But I really had to trust God to show up and to give me, show me that He was there with me, even though I didn't quite believe it at that point. Well, it was sometime where I went back to the church, our church home, which was a couple miles away from my grandparents' house, for like a little youth event. And in this youth event, there was a guest speaker, and he spoke about his testimony, just like I am doing right now. He said that he was a teenage criminal. He was someone that hated God. He was someone that would get in trouble, steal from people, hurt people. And one day, he had stolen some goods from a store, and he was being chased by the cops. So he was running, and he was trying to get away, and the cops were threatening him to send him to jail. And he was jumping fences and backyards. Chickens were following him. It was crazy. And he jumps over a fence, and I don't know if you ever did this as a kid, but his shirt got stuck. And he was dangling in the fence, just like this, and he couldn't get away. The cops were running. They were trying to find him. And in that moment, he remembered what his grandma taught him about the Bible. He remembered that he could cry out to God, and God will help him. Even in this moment, which he was being bad, and he probably deserved to be caught by the cops and shown a lesson, he cried out to God. He asked for repentance, and he asked God that if he would free him in that moment, that he would turn away from his path and follow him. And lo and behold, his shirt ripped open, and he was able to escape. Later on, he returned to that store, and he returned the items that he stole, asked for forgiveness. And from that point forward, he promised to follow God. And he was now a guest speaker at a youth conference. So God has shown in his life, and he was kind of showing us what God can do through us. Man, this testimony resonated with me. I don't know exactly what it was, but in that moment, I felt the presence of God speaking to me. I felt that loneliness. I felt everything just came crashing down. I was being bad at school. I was not following Christ how I should. And in that moment, God spoke to me, and I felt his presence for the first time. For the first time, I wept for like what felt like hours, because I could just feel his presence and the Holy Spirit speaking to me in that moment. And I knew that God wanted me to turn away from the path that I was kind of going into and to follow him with all my heart. So from that point forward, church, I decided to give my life to Christ at the age of 11. And I could not be happier. I remember telling my parents whenever I got home, calling them because they lived in a different city. And I could not wait to get baptized. So that summer, I went and visited my parents, and my dad orchestrated a trip to the beach, and I was able to get baptized by my dad. Here's a picture of me. Anyone else got baptized in the beach at some point? I see one hand. That's awesome. We didn't have a fancy baptismal like this with heater and water, so the beach was the best we could do. So I got baptized there with 4 other folks, and I could not be happier. So I had to experience what it was like to find my faith for my own, to be away from the things that I knew, to be away from my comfort zone in order for me to truly believe God. So later on, I told you guys that I come from a family of 3 generations of pastors. That is on my dad's side. On my mom's side, my mom had barely become a believer by the time she met my dad. So by the time I was a little baby, my mom was very fresh in her faith, and also almost all her family. They were not believers, like on my dad's side they were. So when my grandpa one day came to us and told us that he had played the lottery, that came to no surprise with us. He was always playing little scratch-offs and doing things that we didn't really could relate to because, we weren't in that lifestyle. So he told us that he not only played the lottery, but he had won the lottery. We were amazed. Now, this wasn't a money lottery. I'm not a hidden millionaire or anything like that, church. No worry. We would have huge LED screens already by now. We would not have a broken projector if that was the case. But we want what he had won. It's an international lottery, and this basically is a visa opportunity. So you can win. You can enter your name, your family's name, and you can enter for a chance to win the opportunity to come to the States. Can you believe that? Like, there's something out there internationally that people are wanting to come to the place where you all live already to have a better life. So that's what my grandpa entered to, and this would secure us a legal pathway for not only him, but my family to come to the States. Now, I said how poor we were. Our house in Cuba was probably as big as from those steps to probably over here. We lived very poorly, and moving to America would give my family an opportunity to not only improve their opportunities, but also help the rest of our family in Cuba. So we had a family meeting. The whole family gathered around, and he basically told us that he wanted to come to the States, but he needed all of us to be bought in. He needed all of us to not only help raise the money that he needed for plane tickets and to move to the United States, but also for us to promise that we would, at some point, move to the States as soon as we had the opportunity to. So in 2000, he moved to America, and I think I have a picture of our goodbye party to him. So on the side with his hands up, just like I was earlier, is my dad and my mom, and my grandpa Frank is right there in the middle. He has the tie. And in 2000, he moved to the States with only about $500 to his name. He showed up in Miami, and he was met with people from the organization that were going to help him out. But he showed up with only $500 in his pocket. He showed up being an unbeliever. He didn't believe in God at the time. But I remember we were able to communicate very briefly with him because international calling in 2000 was very expensive. So we knew that he was safe. And a couple weeks later, he called us. And my grandpa is a very logical and academically sound person. He was a college professor in Cuba. He taught internationally in Portugal as well. This man can recite full sections of scientific books to you in a moment's notice. So my grandpa is a very logical thinker. So believing in God was something that was very hard for him to get to. I don't know if any of you have experienced that before. But I remember him calling my mom, and he said, Arelis, which is my mom's name, Arelis, I'm the happiest that I have ever been in my life. And my mom said, of course, you're in the U.S. Of course you're the happiest you've ever been. You have a little bit of money. You have AC. You have some food, finally, which is awesome. Of course you're the happiest you've ever been in your life. But he said, actually, no. I am the happiest I've ever been in my life because for the first time ever, I got down on my knees and I prayed to God. And I thank him for how he brought my whole family and he brought me here. Without me believing in him, he set out many different paths so that I could make it here in this moment. So at that point, my grandpa started working through his faith. It took him being away from everything he knew, being away from his comfort zone, in order for him to truly experience God and his provision. I remember that he was given and he was going to be assigned a place to move to, like a permanent residence. He was still in Miami. And this was right before my grandma came and reunited with him. And he was trusting God in this process. He maybe started going to a church service or two. And the lady came and told him, hey, I have different places, different states that we can move you to. And I'm going to name them off. And you can move to Louisville, Kentucky. You can move to Chicago. You can move to Texas. Or you can move to North Dakota. I don't know. And he said that he was trusting God in that moment, that God was going to put him in the place that he needed to be. So he just said yes to the first words that came to her from her mouth, which was Louisville, Kentucky. So in that moment, he got assigned a place in Louisville, Kentucky. He was reunited with my grandma, and this is 2001. Well, my grandpa learned that he needed to stop relying on his own intellect, on his own human plans, and he needed to rely on God to move in his life and to tell him where he needed to go. Can you relate to that this morning? That sometimes our own plans, our own intellect, our own decisions can get in the way if we don't really trust God, and we don't really kneel down in our knees and ask him, God, what do you really want me to do? So that's what my grandpa started doing, and he started growing in his faith. In church, 9 years later is when me and my family got the opportunity to even have an interview in order to be able to come to the States. So in 2001, we were told that we were at some point we're going to move to the States. A month later, I asked my parents, hey, when are we moving? We don't know yet. A year went by. When are we moving? We don't know yet. 9 years of waiting went by for us in order to get an interview. In church, this was the first time of 2 times that I experienced time traveling. Because I went from being in the hot line in order to get to the U.S. Embassy, and when the doors opened, I remember that cold AC just hit my face, probably for the first time ever. And I looked to the walls, and I saw a flat screen TV in color. I had never seen that before. So in that moment, I time traveled basically 20 years in the future based on what I had been accustomed to in my life. To not make this story long, we gathered our papers, we were approved, and we were ready to move to the States. And this is another time that was very difficult for us because we had to say goodbye to everything we knew. The government seized our home. I mean, we lived in a communist country, and the government basically controls everything. So even our home, it was seized from us. We had to basically, I remember and this is a little bit off path, but they came in, did an inventory on everything we had in our house so that when we left, everything was still there. We had to leave everything behind because we were moving to the United States, almost like as a punishment. And I remember that we had to say goodbye to everything, our cousins, our friends, our families. And this was a bittersweet moment at the airport because not only were we moving to the United States, but we were having to say basically goodbye to everybody we knew. And we had a huge amount of people there at the airport saying goodbye to us. And there was a lot of crying because we may have never seen them again. At that point, international calling wasn't really a thing. There weren't cell phones. This is 2010. I mean, there were flip phones, but and FaceTime wasn't even a thing. So we basically, when we said our goodbyes, we knew that there was a big chance that we would never see them again. But at the same time, we were contrasted by the idea that we were moving to the United States and we were reuniting with our grandparents. When I got to the Miami airport, I experienced time traveling for the second time. Because I walked in the bathroom and I experienced a self-flushing toilet for the first time. And let me tell you, it was scary. I was not ready for that. But I think I have a photo here of when we arrived to the States. Yeah. There's my sisters and my grandparents. There's me. I don't know if you guys can see what I'm holding in my hand, but that was basically the only thing that I brought with me, which was this guitar right here. This is the only thing that I could bring from the States, and I decided to bring a guitar. God was already working in my life, and He knew that He wanted me to be a worshiper. He knew that He wanted me to, at some point, lead His people in worship. So I knew that this was important, so I brought this with me. And I can't play it anymore, so I'll try to get it fixed soon. But it brings me so much joy when when I'm at home and I look at the wall and I see the guitar that I brought from Cuba. It reminds me of home. I think there was another photo as well. Perfect. It was a super happy and emotional day to be reunited again. Well, time went by, and our first Christmas came along. We had never celebrated Christmas. Again, we lived in a communist country, and basically any outward display of religion, any outward display of Christianity is very persecuted. Our churches all the time got burglarized, and we would be in the middle of service, and people would throw rocks through the windows and break them. So Christmas wasn't something that we got to celebrate a whole lot. So when we experienced our first Christmas here, we were really excited. In the back of my head, I was more excited about the presents than anything else. But again, my family had just moved here. We had nothing. We moved into our grandparents' house, which is, if you guys ever drive down 3rd Street and if you've ever been to Lee's Famous Chicken, has anybody had some chicken there? It's pretty good. It's pretty good. Well, our house was basically the one behind Lee's Famous Chicken. So if you look behind that fence, that was the house that we moved to. It was a 2-bedroom home. And that 2-bedroom home, my grandpa split so that we could host about, at some point, 12 people in that house. So he split the living room in half and created rooms for me in the living room and my sisters. And then he split his master bedroom in half so that he could put a bed there for my parents and my uncles and aunts later on. So whenever we knew that Christmas was coming, we knew not to expect a whole lot. But we heard of this program that was in the city, and this program allowed families that were in need to partner with families that could provide and that had a little bit extra in order to help them with Christmas gifts, in order to help kids receive probably their first Christmas gifts ever. So we were ecstatic. We showed up in line, and everyone there was really excited. The workers came and kind of explained a little bit of how it worked, and they told us that we could ask for anything almost like if it was Santa Claus. We could ask for anything. So people were asking for cars. They were asking for bicycles. They were asking for computers, anything you could imagine, because they told us we could ask for anything. Well, that didn't sit too well for me. And all I really wanted, church, was a skateboard. I grew up watching American movies. I grew up seeing how fun Tony Hawk was having, and I knew I wanted, in order to achieve that American dream, I needed a skateboard. And I just went up there, and when they asked me what I needed, I wrote down skateboard. Well, weeks went by, and we get a random knock in our door. I think it was 2 weeks before Christmas or so. And my sister, probably one of my sisters, went out the door, saw there was some people there. They were like, there's some white people in our front door right now that we don't know who's going to talk to who. So me being the person that knew a little bit of English, I came up and I asked for what they were there for. They asked to come inside our home, and somehow we let them in. And they had these huge bags, and they began pulling out presents. They pulled out backpacks for us to go to school. They pulled out books, pulled out notebooks. They pulled out probably some dolls for my sisters. And all of a sudden, this random bag comes out. Then I open it, and lo and behold, church, it was a skateboard I wanted. I was so excited because I could finally go out into the street, which didn't have any potholes, which all the streets in Cuba do, and I could ride my skateboard down the street. So God has really provided for us in ways that we could have never imagined. And this wasn't just about God providing us with the necessities. But when He delivered Christmas gifts to us, we believe that this was God showing us that He could take care of us more than what we absolutely need. We didn't need Christmas gifts. We didn't need to have a skateboard. But God so graciously saw how faithful our family had been, and God wanted to bless us. And in Matthew 7:17, it says, "If you then, who are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more with your Father in heaven give good things to those who ask them." So this for us wasn't something material that we could receive, but it was God showing us that He wanted to provide for us and give us abundantly in our lives. So we praise Him for that moment, and we rejoice. This is something that myself and my grandpa Frank and the rest of my family experienced, and it was a huge part of our story. God provides for us no matter what our circumstances are. And in turn, that teaches us to rely on His timing and His trustworthiness. And nowadays, church, I think we have a picture of my family today. But not church, we have a growing family in our midst. As you can see, there's a couple more people that have been added. Some of our cousins from Cuba were able to come to the States. We were able to reunite each other. My uncles and aunts. And if you go to the next picture, you'll see that we have also added to our family as well. My sisters and myself, we've all had little babies. So my parents are more than ecstatic that we finally have a growing and thriving family here in the U.S. And it's only because of Him. So, in conclusion, church, my faith journey heavily involves my grandpa Frank and the sacrifices that he made to bravely jump into the unknown, to a new country, to lead our family into a better future. You see, one thing that my grandpa and I have in common is that we both had to be taken out of our comfort zone in order to truly experience God for ourselves. I'm sure that many of us here today can relate to that. My parents did everything the right way. They taught us how to faithfully serve the Lord. They taught us how know Him, how to pray to God, but that wasn't enough. We knew that they model for us what it was to be a true believer. And although I believe in God and had accepted Him as my Savior, I didn't necessarily know Him to trust Him because I didn't have a personal relationship with Him yet. I had a small seed of faith that needed to be nurtured or it would die. And when I moved away, when my grandpa moved away, we were able to know and find God for ourselves, find the faith that was in not only what was modeled and taught, but it was real for us. And when the times when we ask ourselves, God, are you really good? Are you really trustworthy? What I want to tell you today is that if you really lean in and trust Him through the hard times, God will become as real to you as He is to me. He has been so amazing in my life, more than I could even imagine. I have seen Him show me the right people to talk to and the right doors to walk through over and over again. This little Cuban boy would have never thought that he would be right here on this stage speaking to probably 100 or so, hundreds of American people in English. I would have never thought that this would be an opportunity I would have. But if you can take anything away from this, is that this is part of God's promise to us, that He will respond when we seek Him, and He would answer to us when we cry out. In Psalm 34, verse 4, it says, I sought the Lord, and He answered me, and He delivered me from all my fears. Those who look to Him are radiant, and their faces shall never be ashamed. This poor man cried, and the Lord heard him, and He saved him out of all his troubles. The angel of the Lord encamps around those who fear Him and delivers them. Oh, taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed is the man who takes refuge in Him. My family is proof of that reality, that God is with us in all things. So I want to leave you with this last verse, and it's in Matthew 6:31. Therefore, do not be anxious, saying, what shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or what shall we wear? For the Gentiles seek after all these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them all. But seek first the kingdom and His righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. So let's promise God to invite Him into our busy weeks, into the hardships that we may go through. Let's promise to invite Him into our lives and to guide us and through every circumstance that we may go through, not only this week, but for the rest of our lives. Because He will respond and guide us down the path that He's already laid out for us. Thank you, church.